Thank you. I'm Mr. Lehner, and welcome back to Mr. Lehner's Math Extravaganza. In today's webisode, what we're going to be taking a look at is how fact families relate to multiplication and division. Let's jump into an example problem. Okay, and these problems find the value for n that makes each number sentence true. Okay, so it kind of builds off what we talked about yesterday, but instead of using addition and subtraction fact families, we're going to use multiplication and division fact families. And of course, we're going to throw some fractions in there, just to put it a step harder on the scale up here. Let's take a look at our first problem. You have n times 1/5 equals 2 over 15, or 2/15. Now, similar to what we did yesterday, we took our two addends in our addition problem, and they equal the sum. And then when we went to our subtraction, the sum was the first number in the subtraction part of the number sentence. Now we're going to do the same thing with multiplication and division here. When I take two fractions or two numbers and multiply them together, that equals a product. Well, the product then becomes the first number in this set in a division problem. So if I have n times 1/5 equals 2/15, and I'm trying to find n, a good strategy might be to just write a different fact family number sentence. So 2/15, this is the product, it's the biggest one. It's going to come first in a division problem. Okay, so 2/15 divided by, well, I already know 1/5 is one of the numbers, so there's 1/5. I'm trying to find n. Well, now it's just like a division of fraction problems that we've done before. So I'm going to bring 2/15 down, change the division to multiplication, and then use the reciprocal, flip and recip, 1/5 to 5 over 1. Now let's multiply across using our algorithm that we learned before. 2 times 5 is 10, 15 times 1 is 15, 10/15 is the same thing as 2/3, or equivalent fractions. So I'm saying that n is equal to 2/3. How do I know if I'm right? Yeah, this is the part we don't want to forget. There's an easy way to check if I'm right. Let's plug this answer back into n. Well, if I think that n is 2/3, if this was 2/3, 2 times 1 would be 2, 3 times 5 would be 15, so I know that my answer is correct. If I came up with an answer, say like, 3/7, I'm just making this up. Let's plug it back in. 3 times 1 is 3, 7 times 5 would be 35. So again, 3/35 isn't the answer, so I know I would have made a calculation error somewhere. Maybe I mixed up my algorithm, mixed up my fractions. So with these problems, make sure you take the time to go back and plug it in and check if it works. Now some of you might be saying that, well, I just knew that 2 times 1 would have been 2, and 3 times 5 would have been 15, so I could just figure it out by looking at the problem that way. For this problem, it may work, but for other problems, it might be a little bit harder, or you might not have a numerator of 1, where you're going to have to do some figuring out with the fact families to help you out. Let's take a look at this fact family in this problem. Again, I said 2/15 was our product here. Well, here's my two problems. 2/15 divided by 1/5 equals 2/3. 2/15 divided by 2/3 equals 1/5. Now let's look at our multiplication again. This is the product. It's going to be the sum, or not the sum, it's going to be the product of our two fractions. 1/5 times 2/3 is 2/15, and 2/3 times 1/5 is equal to 2/15. So again, it's very similar to what we talked about with addition and subtraction, only now we're just using multiplication and division. We're just throwing a little bit of another factors in here with our computation of multiplication and division. Let's take a look at this problem over here. I have a half times n equals 1/3. Now, those who like to say, oh, I just did it in my head, I figured it out, you might be saying, well, 1 times 1 could give me 1, and 2 times what gives me 3? See, now that's where it comes in. It's helpful to know this fact family, because it's not always going to be very easy or straightforward. So let's think about what we know in this problem. I know that when I multiply these two fractions together, it's going to give me my product, which is 1/3. I also know that 1/3 is going to be our biggest number here. So I'm going to take this 1/3, and it's going to become the first portion of the problem. 1/3 divided by a half is going to equal n. I can use my algorithm again. Bring the 1/3 down, change this to multiplication, use the flip and recip method. The reciprocal becomes 2 over 1. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. I think that n is going to equal 2/3. Good point. Let's check it by plugging it back in. A half times 2/3. 1 times 2 would be 2. 2 times 3 would be 6. Wait a second, I got 2/6. I must have made a mistake, right? Where did I go wrong in my problem? Oh, ooh, you're right. 2/6 is an equivalent fraction of 1/3. So yes, my answer is correct. 2/3 would be our answer to n. Again, make sure that you don't forget equivalent fractions when you're looking at your solutions here. All right, go ahead and make sure you guys get that pencil ready. Get that paper out, ready to go. These are going to be your two problems I want you guys to try at home. N divided by 1/5 equals 2/3, and 1/3 times n equals 1/6. Go ahead and pause this video, and we'll see how you guys do. Okay, let's take a look at this first one. Again, I have n divided by 1/5 equals 2/3. I have a division problem. If I'm trying to figure this one out, I know that the first number in a division problem is always going to be the biggest number. So in a multiplication problem, that's going to come at the end. So I can rewrite my problem as 2/3 times 1/5 is going to equal n. Well, now I can just multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm saying that n equals 2/15. Well, let's plug it back in. I'm saying that 2/15 divided by 1/5 is going to equal 2/3. Well, let's prove it. Let's show the work here. 2/15 divided by 1/5. Bring that down, change division to multiplication, flip in recip, becomes 5/1. 2 times 5 is 10, 15 times 1 is 15, 10/15 is 2/3, which is what equaled our quotient here in the division problem. So again, I plugged it back in to double check my work. Now the answer to the problem we're looking for is n. So the answer is n equals 2/15. So hopefully you had a similar method as we worked through it. And our second one here. Now for those of you that like to say, oh, I can do this one in my head, you might have saw the trick in here. I have 1/3 times n equals 1/6. And you might have said to yourself, well, 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 3 is 6. So maybe the answer is a half. Well, let's find out. If I have 1/3 times n equals 6, again, I know that 1/6 is the biggest number in this problem, so this product's going to come first. So 1/6 divided by 1/3 equals n. Bring down my 1/6, change division to multiplication, use reciprocal, multiply across. 1 times 3 is 3, 6 times 1 is 6, which is 3/6, which is equal to a half. We think that n equals a half, let's plug it back in. 1 times 1 is 6, 3 times 2 would be, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6, which is going to equal 1/6. So again, it's a little bit of algebra in here. We're using our fact families to help us figure out the third fraction in these multiplication and division fact families here. So again, make sure you guys double check your work, and don't forget to plug back in to understand, did I get it right or wrong? Thank you for tuning in to Mr. Lainer's Math Extravaganza. As always, we'll see you next time.